What's up, Jeffers? How are you guys doing? Hey, legends. Hope you guys are doing okay today. Um, yeah, it's been a while since I've been on one of these ads, and I feel like I've been a bit of a stranger for a bit. But it's Coach Tope here. Please let me know if you are here. Let me know how you are doing. Pop in. I'm going to be talking about quite an interesting topic, a topic that literally, is relatable for each and every one of us. I don't think there's a single person in here, unless you're some sort of superhuman um, from Krypton, that wouldn't, have experienced this topic. I think it's one of those that, we absolutely, feel in our day-to-day lives. We feel, from an emotional perspective, physical perspective, all of that stuff. Hey, Pat, hope you're doing well. Let me know where you are checking in from, how you doing today, and if you enjoyed your public holiday as well as Halloween over the course of the weekend. But I'm not going to keep you guys for too long today. I'll try and get into it as soon as I can. But just letting you guys know or checking in to see how you guys are doing before I get going. Hey, Gavin, hope you are doing well. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, Pat. Okay, then. Hello, Kathleen. I'm sure you enjoyed your calm session. But cool, guys. Let me take you right into it. The topic of today's talk is know your pain. We're doing this almost in collaboration with CPLA. It's one of those topics that is super important because every single one of us experiences it. Every single one of us has an experience of it, and it affects our day-to-day lives. It affects how we live, it affects what we're able to do, it affects your mood, it affects so many different aspects of our lives. And it's the concept of pain. When you think about pain, you think about the saying that almost you hear almost every other day, the concept of no pain, no gain. We probably say that a million times. You have your instructors telling you that when you're doing your workouts and pushing you through your workouts and telling you no pain, no gain. And you probably even tell yourself that whilst you're in the depths of your workout and the sessions are getting very intense, and you probably whisper to yourself and say no pain no gain just to get you through the workouts. Well, the concept of pain is very interesting because it's an unpleasant sensation. However, sometimes you can almost have this very inverse relationship with it, where you have pain and afterwards you feel exhilaration. But at the same time, whilst pain can be positive, pain can also be negative. It has a darker component, a detrimental component to it. And so it's important to understand pain, understand what you are feeling, understand why you are feeling it, understand when it goes from being protective to being detrimental, because that way you're able to highlight things, you're able to address it, and you're able to improve your standard of living or your quality of life. It's a topic that, or it's one of the few terms in science that serves as very important metrics for life. You have mortality, you have morbidity, and then you have adjusted quality of life. Pain can really affect your quality of life. The scientific term for pain is nociception, and generally, it is defined as an unpleasant sensation. It can range from mild to localized discomfort, something you feel in your shoulder, to agony. You can have a situation where you're writhing around in bed because you are in pain, depending on the extent of the pain. It has a physical component to it, which is the physical stimulus that you feel. And then it can be emotional as well. It's the reason why you go through a heartbreak and you can feel that pain in your chest. So pain really does have, quite a number of variations or different effects or different aspects of your life that it is related to. Pain can be specific. It can also be diffuse. You can feel pain in your ankle and know that, well, the pain is coming from my ankle. You can feel pain in your finger if you cut it whilst cooking in the kitchen. And you can also feel pain from heartburn that you don't really know where the source of the pain is. It's just uncomfortable. It's just sore. You can't tell, you can't be sure where exactly it's coming from, but you know that you are feeling some sort of pain. And so it's important to almost understand the pathway of pain. How do we feel pain? Again, I'm going to go into that nerdy side of things where we talk about how amazing the body is, but I'll also try and make it a bit more relatable. I like to use an example. I'm a person that leaves alone the majority of the time. I have to cook my own food and things along those lines. So every now and then, I touch the pot and it's too hot, and I should have been paying a little bit more attention, and I feel the pain as a result of that. But what happens? Why am I able to touch the pot and feel the pain, and why do I suddenly take my hand away? There's a pathway involved. This pathway starts at your fingertips, where you have receptors known as nociceptors. These are basically receptors that detect stimulus, or noxious stimulus, so stimulus that's negative, pain like stimulus. Now, it's important to understand that your fingers have those receptors. Now, as soon as you touch that pot, those receptors are able to tell, wait, there's something wrong here, and they send electric signals through your nerves. Takes the signals through to your spinal cord, and your spinal cord takes the signals through to your brain. Now, in the brain is able to perceive this, and it's able to interpret it. It decides, okay, wait, this pain isn't good, or this stimulus isn't good. It's not something I should be touching, right? It interprets it. It sends another electric signal down through to your spinal cord, which sends it to your efferent nerves, down to your effector organs, your muscles and your fingers, and you find yourself take your fingers off as soon as possible, because your brain has said, listen, you need to be taking your hand away from that ASAP, because that is not positive for you. So as you can imagine, that is actually protective, because your brain has been able to protect you by detecting that something is negative, and it's not is something that you don't want to be in contact with for too long, which is absolutely amazing when you think about it. Because again, if you think about how quickly it happens, you touch a pot and you take your hand off so quickly, and all of those pathways happen in that split second. Your receptors pick it up, send it through to your spinal cord sends it to your brain translates it, sends it back down to your spinal cord sends it back down to your muscles contract and pull your finger away, and as a result of that, you don't hold the pot for long enough for it to damage your fingers, or at least you sustain a minimum amount of damage. And as you can imagine, if that pathway gets compromised, you could end up damaging yourself a lot more, because you end up holding on that pot for too long, and by the time you are letting go of it, the tissues are irreparably damaged. And just speaking about how amazing the body is, I don't know if you are getting the same feeling I am, but it's almost goosebumps, because it's just crazy that all of that technology happens in that split second. Every now and then you'd get yourself a new phone, and you'd be so amazed by the little things here and there that you can do with it. But I think it's almost important that every now and then you look at your body and you think about the things that it does, and you remember to be amazed by the unbelievable body of science, incredible machinery, incredible technology that is this human body that we live in. Either way, just getting back in, the topic, and moving away from just, getting to taken away by by how amazing our body is. It just goes to show just how important the pathway is that helps us detect pain, and how it can be protective to us. Now, it's also important to understand that each person can experience pain differently. Similar types of pain, you can experience it differently, and that is due to a concept known as pain tolerance. Now, pain tolerance is the ability to ignore pain to a certain level of intensity and duration. It can be influenced by your experience. If you are an endurance athlete, you will probably be able to deal with the pain coming as a result of lactic acid buildup better than someone who has just started running. Your personality type, some people just are more sensitive to pain than other people. Circumstance, listen, if you are in a situation where you're working out, and I know this happens to a lot of guys, girls as well, and there is someone there that you like, or someone there that you have a crush on, it's highly likely that you're more likely to endure more pain because you have that influence around you. I'm sure a lot of us have experienced that in our youth and things along those lines. Gender as well, for some reason, it seems like women tend to be a little bit more pain tolerant than men. So that's a win for the woman as well. But it's important to know that pain can be experienced by people in different ways. Now, going back to the purpose of pain, we understand that pain is supposed to be protective. It's supposed to protect you from extensive damage. It serves as your alarm bells. Now, as I explained previously, you touch something that's too hot, and you feel pain, you take your hand away. If you roll your ankle, you feel pain, and it forces you to walk gingerly on that ankle. That way you don't damage it any further. However, pain can go away from being protective, and it can become detrimental. When pain becomes detrimental, it's a very complex sensory and emotional, almost kind of experience where you go from experiencing pain as an instinctive or natural protective measure to experiencing pain in almost a disease-like state. And that takes us to the types of pain that you can experience. You can experience acute pain, which tends to be the more protective type of pain, which is nociceptive pain. It's a word I struggle with. A pain where you feel it immediately. It tells you what, is that something's wrong, and you're able to react to it very quickly. You also have inflammatory pain. I'll give you the example again where you straighten your ankle, it swells up a little bit, it gets sore, it gets warm, and it reminds you that, listen, you need to walk gingerly because there's been some damage to that area. But you can also have chronic pain, which is more long-lasting pain. This type of pain can be neuropathic, pain that you have as a result of, sciatic damage, sciatica-induced pain. You have shingles that comes as a result of the same virus that causes chickenpox. You have pain that can be, and a lot of times we won't think about it in the concept of pain, but it still falls under that. Strokes, multiple sclerosis as well, where you're having a lot of dysfunctional nerve damage. And then you have other types of dysfunctional chronic pain as well that include fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, and as simple as tension headaches. Now, just going through this, it's important to almost understand what the characteristics of chronic pain are. How do you know that you are heading away from normal pain towards pain that is more detrimental, more disease-like, more worrisome, if I could put it that way? Well, generally, chronic pain tends to last longer than 3 months. When you have pain and it's enduring for much longer than, expected, then that's a characteristic of chronic pain. When you have gone through a month, same pain, second month of the same pain, third month of the same pain, it's not really getting better. It's starting to become a long-term thing. You're starting to live with it. That's a sign of chronic pain. When you go to a doctor about a certain pain that you are feeling, and they're able to, say, do an MRI scan, and they can see changes in brain activity as a result of that pain, that's usually a sign of chronic pain. When your pain starts to morph and go from one thing to another, you start with a bit of a fever, then you have a headache, or you have irritable bowel syndrome, and then that moves and starts to change into long-term fibromyalgia. And when you have situations where the pain actually starts to really impact the quality of your daily life, when it affects your sleep, you're unable to sleep well because of the pain that you're dealing with. When it affects your mood, you're constantly in a bad mood due to the fact that you are in or feeling this type of pain. When you have situations where pain can affect your level of alertness, people pass out as a result of the amount of pain that they are feeling. Generally, you realize that you are going from a normal protective acute pain towards more disease-like chronic pain that really needs to be managed properly. Some types of chronic pain include inflammation. As I said earlier, inflammation generally can be acute. Just to explain the whole concept behind it, I think we've talked about it a few times in our Jeff Eds. When you, let's just take it back a bit. Inflammation is very important for a lot of different aspects of our lives. It's a major part of our immune system. So think about it: when you have, when you're sick, when you have some sort of infection, your immune system gets activated. Well, it utilizes inflammation to fight whatever is causing that illness or whatever has infected you. When you have an injury, inflammation, say you sprain your ankle, inflammation sends blood towards that area, sends all the healing factors towards that area. It also helps in getting some of the platelets and things like that that help you with clots towards that area. That helps with healing. But at the same time, when you think about it, it can also become detrimental, because when all of that swelling happens for too long, when it happens too much, you start to damage your tissues in those areas as well. And it's the reason why when you have an injury, you're told to practice the rise. You're told all the time, rise, rise, rise. We know it means rest, ice, compress, and elevate. Why are you doing this? You're resting because you're trying to allow that area heal. You add an ice to it to reduce the warmth in that area, because that triggers your natural, almost kind of protective mechanisms within your body and pulls blood away from that area. So the blood that would normally be rushing there as a result of inflammation, you can slow that down by icing the area. You compress it. Why are you compressing it as well? You're preventing excessive swelling. By preventing excessive swelling, you're able to prevent excessive tissue damage. And then you're elevating it. By elevating that area as well, you're reducing the amount of blood flow. All of that is done to reduce the amount of inflammation, to ensure that your acute inflammation doesn't end up getting detrimental to that area. As we know, chronic inflammation can also have a lot of detrimental effects. I think one of the more relevant areas that we can actually speak to is the pandemic that we are dealing with right now. You think about the concept of COVID, and with most people who have dealt with COVID, you understand, or you'd hear your doctors talking about putting you on anti-inflammatory drugs, usually anti-inflammatory steroids. And for people who deal with long COVID, you hear things such as a cytokine storm. Now, generally, cytokines are triggers for inflammation, and a lot of this is managed by managing the inflammation, because what happens is the virus, in this case, initially triggers your immune system. Your immune system obviously wakes up and tries to deal with it. It starts out the inflammatory pathway, but then you have a situation where that pathway ends up getting overly triggered, ends up getting chronic, and because of that, you end up with a state of chronic inflammation that usually ends up damaging the individual's own organs. And that's why long COVID can be such a difficult thing to deal with. Either way, that's a little bit off topic, but it goes to show just exactly how detrimental chronic inflammation in the context of pain can be. When you're looking at other types of areas or pain that can be influenced by inflammation, you're looking at things like arthritis, or situations like having arthritis, where you're having chronic inflammation around your joints, affects your daily lives if you deal with that. Chronic pain can actually come across in many other ways. It can come across in long-term fever. You know that the fever is when your temperature is above 37.5 degrees Celsius. When that happens for a long period of time, that is not good for you. Tension headaches, which we know can affect our daily living. If you have a headache for an hour, that's fine. But if you're starting to have headaches every single day for a long period in time, you know that affects your day-to-day life. And then the concept that, or a disease that a lot of men tend to deal with, gout. We know that we have certain foods that are rich in uric acid. Now, generally, your body is able to process uric acid. Your kidneys excrete it, and you pretty much just excrete it as part of your urine. But you have situations where your kidney isn't able to process it as quickly or as effectively. And you end up in a situation where you have a high amount of uric acid in your circulation, hyperuricemia, and then you start having uric acid crystals build up around your joints, and that leads to chronic pain in the situation of gout. As you can imagine, all of these really affect your quality of life. They affect your day-to-day life. They affect your happiness. They affect so many different aspects of our life. And so it's important to almost kind of learn how to modulate them. Now, generally within the medical field, modulation or treatment is usually addressed targeting three areas. So you have your initial sensory area, which is the initial area that feels the pain. And to kind of manage these or to address this, generally, you would look at things like anesthesia, so local anesthesia, to reduce the amount of feeling of pain in that specific area. You also look at modulation, which is where molecules like opioids come into place, where you're modulating the transduction of this pain from the sensory organs to the brain. And then you also can modulate perception. Opioids are also used in this area as well, to try and modulate how your brain perceives the pain, to almost help you feel better rather than feeling the entire effect of that pain. Now, general anesthesia is another way that perception is controlled, by putting a person on anesthesia or putting a person on stuff like morphine. You're able to almost kind of numb the pain because your brain isn't able to translate that pain properly. But those are ways that, in the medical field, in terms of short-term, management, chronic pain can be, or pain in general can be addressed. Now, looking at treatment of pain, there's a variety of ways, and I'll take you through both the medical and non-medical approaches to addressing pain. Generally, within the medical field, that it's addressed with anesthesia. It's addressed with antihistamines, which are generally utilized in the treatments of allergy-inducing, or pain-inducing allergens. You have opioids, which one has to be really careful with because they can be very addictive. You have non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which are utilized to reduce inflammation. An example of that will be ibuprofen. Corticosteroids, which are generally, steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, such as cortisone, that's utilized in managing COVID. And then you have statins, which are generally utilized in the management of cardiovascular diseases. However, when you're looking at long-term, when you're looking at, actual beneficial kind of interventions, you're looking at more lifestyle-oriented interventions for pain. And those type of interventions could be acupuncture, they could be yoga. You also have psychotherapy, and you have lifestyle interventions, some of which we actually do right here at Jeff. Now, as you know, lifestyle interventions are probably the best way to address most types of chronic pain. Yoga, an amazing way to deal with chronic pain. Psychotherapy, because sometimes you have pain that's not necessarily as stimulus induced as it is more pathway induced. That pathway has been triggered and has become dysfunctional, and now you could get to a stage where you're starting to feel pain that does not necessarily exist, and that's where psychotherapy can really be helpful. Now, I'm trying not to keep us here for too long. I know that, I have taken you through a bit of a mouthful, but I think you guys can kind of just see just how important it is to understand pain, how important it is to understand the concept of pain, knowing what pain is, what you are feeling when you're feeling a certain type of pain, understanding when pain is starting to go away from being acute and protective towards being disease-like and detrimental. It's important to understand the almost the defining factor between both types. That way you know exactly when you need to start taking a little bit more action towards addressing the pain that you feel. Looking at this type of situations, you also want to be in a situation where if you are dealing with chronic pain, you want to understand what your doctors could be providing for you, understand which different interventions are there on hand for you to use. And that way you can make the better choices, you can make better decisions as to how to manage and how to, address the pain that you are feeling. I think a massive resource that you can definitely use is the website known as, or the website called nopain.co.za. It's www.nopain.co.za. It's a website by Siple, and what they've done is they've literally broken down the concept of pain right from the right to the barest minimum. That way you understand exactly what the different types of pain are, exactly what you should be looking for to understand what types of pain you are feeling, what the treatment measures are for each type of pain that you could be feeling, what is chronic pain, what is acute pain, when your pain is, or when it's something that you need to be worried about, or something you need to be addressing, what type of lifestyle interventions you can be utilizing for this type of pain. And I think it's a website that is extremely handy, or each one of us should probably have as a bit of a guide, because it gives you so much resource, so much understanding as to what you are feeling, why you are feeling this feeling, and what you can do to address that. With that said, guys, that's it for me today. I hope you guys have enjoyed the chat. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I hope you guys understand a little bit more about pain, understand why you're feeling the or the purpose of pain, how to know when pain isn't, protective anymore, and when it's starting to become detrimental, and how to address that, what your different options are. Also, understanding that you have resources at hand that you can utilize to address or deal with pain a little bit better. I hope you guys have enjoyed this chat. Please have a look at that website, go through it, just read through it, and you'll realize that there's so much on there to help you understand the concept of pain and understand how it can affect our daily lives. I hope you guys have enjoyed this chat today. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you do, I will try and go through them. And actually, if you don't have, let me just have a look here. I see a comment here from Gavin talking about long COVID, infection, and inflammatory markers. Absolutely, absolutely. It is one of those areas that a lot of people don't understand. It's almost important to understand that the virus actually doesn't cause as much of the effect that you feel long term as your immune system actually does. Your immune system is actually more responsible for the long-term effects that you feel. The virus, you actually get rid of it in about 5 days after, well, say about 10 days after infection, but 5 days after you start feeling your symptoms. And then what happens is a bit of an inflammatory storm after that. Inflammation gets triggered, it starts to affect your blood vessels as well. That's the reason for the blood clots, and it's the reason why doctors would generally address it or try and intervene with corticosteroids and anticoagulants to try and reduce the amount of inflammation, and also ensuring that whatever damage has been caused by that inflammation doesn't lead to too much blood clots being formed within circulation. So it's very important to almost understand that sometimes we understand what or we think of certain things and we see them as the source of our problems, but a lot of the times it can be something completely different. um, I see someone here has talked about plantar fasciitis as well. Absolutely. That is one of those major struggles. And it's one of the reasons why you need to take care of your feet. You need to understand form. You need to make sure that you're using the proper shoes, and you need to be also treating the almost, it's not really inflammation, but inflammatory type effects that happen as a result of the plantar fascia getting strained due to a lack of support for that area. Sciatica as well, definitely a problem. A lot of people struggle with that. Especially, it tends to happen a lot when you are working out a lot and you start to lose your form. It's a reason why it's important to make sure that your form is constantly being checked. I always say to people, we have this mindset of, no pain, no gain, and we go so hard at everything. And it's almost important to understand that it's better to work out effectively, and not necessarily not work out hard, but make sure that efficiency is the main key in your mind. And that comes from form. That comes from making sure that you're pushing hard, but you are making sure you don't compromise your form. And that's one of the areas that can lead to, a lot of chronic pain. Knee pain as well, definitely. You need to be looking at your form. You need to be looking at supporting your patella as well. And just understanding again that, chronic pain is something that can really affect your life. As you can imagine, if you have plantar fasciitis, you may not think of it as something that bad, but think about how you feel every time you want to go have a run. Oh, geez, soon my feet are will start, aching. And just that thought discourages you. And you may not think about it that much, but it really affects your quality of life when you can't just get up and say, I want to do something. So it's important to understand it. It's important to understand what you are feeling, why you are feeling it, and how you can address it. So once again, guys, do have a look at the website. It's www.untitled www.nopain.co.za. They really just are an amazing resource and will help answer all the questions. I'll go through the comments again once the chat is once I this ed is done, and I will try and answer as many questions as I can. I can see that a lot of people are coming in. I see Alison here has talked about a lower back being a signal for bad form. Absolutely. And it's one of those areas you want to be absolutely careful about. You make sure that your lower back is being protected. If you are pushing hard and you can start feeling that tinge in your lower back, you need to be pulling back and thinking about your form, because you don't want to split a disc, you don't want to herniate a disc, and you don't want, to it's just not worth it. So you want to make sure that you are focusing on the form. I know plantar fasciitis is a problem as well. It's one of those that one finds very difficult to get rid of. You won't solve it just by changing your shoes. You will really need to it's no pain, so KNOW, but you will really need to just manage the symptoms there as well. And I have an ad about it a couple of months ago, but you will just need to really manage the symptoms. You need to utilize ice to almost kind of reduce the inflammation in that area, making sure that you get in the right type of stretches in. There's so many different ways to address plantar fasciitis. But that's it, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed the chat. I will be going through the comments, so if you have any more questions that I haven't gone through, please just pop them into the comments. I'll go through them as time goes on. Thank you very much, Natalia. That is correct. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this chat. Please go onto the website and have a look there. You will, be absolutely surprised how much I was surprised myself, because I felt like, wow. And it's one of the reasons why I chose to have this talk was, wow, I felt like this was a resource that will definitely, be helpful to a lot of us. But it's great I hope you guys have had a great, conversation with me today. I hope I haven't bored you too much with all of the semantics and the science around it. Have a superb rest of your day, guys. Hey, Coach Sam. And I will go through the comments and chat with you. Have a lovely rest of the day, guys.